Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and our Gamescom 2013 special report. Here with Andreas Nee, our European correspondent. Andreas, how you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks.
Great to have you on the show. Great to be doing this via Skype for the first time.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun, and this is probably going to be our highest quality Skype interview to date because Andreas is filming from his end. Obviously, we're filming from our end. So we're going to do a bunch of different pieces. We're going to do an individual piece on Gran Turismo 6, Forza 5, WRC 4. Also, Andreas got to check out a motion rig that was built by a group of high school students.
Yes.
So we're going to be checking out that on another show. But on this show, we're just going to do a general recap of some other stuff that he saw, starting with Oculus Rift.
All right.
For iRacing. Let's start with Gamescom in general. How was it? How was it this year? Now, this is your fourth year you've done it for us.
Yes, exactly. It's really incredible. Each and every time, I'm really thrilled and excited when I walk up to the halls. If you've never been to a game show, or especially Gamescom, it's really hard to describe the energy and everything because it's crazy. It really is.
It is.
Just imagine like 70,000 people going through these halls, so the equivalent of a small town each day. It was sold out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And what they did is they sold noon tickets. So you bought them at around 1 o'clock for those that didn't get normal tickets. And for each person that left the fairground, they let in somebody else in at 2 o'clock. So even it was, although it was sold out, they still tried to get more people through, and this year it really showed because with next gen consoles, interest was really high, so the halls were really packed with people. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I kind of saw the same thing at E3 too, and it seemed last year was kind of for us at E3 was a little lackluster. But this year, with the new consoles coming out, it seemed crazy. So, and you had mentioned that usually, like on the second day, it's not that crazy, and it's usually mostly media, but it was still really packed that day as well.
Yeah. With Gamescom, they have the first day as media day, and then so that's Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are open to the public, and as I said, it's crazy.
Well, thank you so much for being there for us, Andreas. And I know you have a good time going, and we really appreciate it. So let's get to business and talk about some of the stuff that you saw. Starting again with Oculus Rift.
Right.
And I know you tried to get an interview with what was his name? The guy from Oculus Rift.
Joe Chen. He's a product lead for Oculus Rift.
But it was just a little, like you mentioned, crazy on the Gamescom floor. So did you actually get to try it?
Yeah, I did.
So what'd you think?
Incredible is probably the word that you have to use.
That's all I keep hearing about it. I'm dying to try it.
You should. It's really, I was very surprised that they actually had an iRacing demo running there. The way they did it is they had one part where you could actually try some game. It was some kind mech robot thing, I don't know, what you could actually play. And the iRacing thing was just, you were sitting in this open wheeler and you were going through this track, I believe it was Brazil. And it was basically a replay. And you were just sitting there in the car and you were, kind of like in the passenger seat, so to speak. And but still, it was incredible.
So it's basically like a 3D environment. You're putting on this headset, and now everywhere you looked, was it basically like you were looking around the environment?
Yes. It has motion tracking. So first of all, it has two like monitors, or split screen, whatever you want to call it. So they're splitting the display or the video input up so that you get individual images for each eye to get this 3D motion. And then with head tracking, the camera perspective moves around. You can see that I filmed myself, running this demo, and you can see me looking around. And the coolest thing is actually when you do this.
Turn around backwards?
Yeah, you look around and you see the back and you see all the cars coming at you, and you can see them passing you by, and you can see the open wheels, and it
looks like by the look on your face that you felt like you could almost touch it.
Actually, that's what I did when I first put it up. I was putting up my hands because you can see your body. You can see your virtual body. You can see your arms moving, and you can see your shoulder and your body and everything. So
nice.
But what's really cool, and especially for sim racing, is with 3D. There's you don't need to memorize. Okay, when this part of pixelated thing comes in, be it the billboard, whatever you have, this is my breaking point, because I know that the pixel thing I need that much pixel space to be at the corner, whatever, No,
right.
No. You look at that image and you think, okay, that is 300 meters and I need to brake at 250. And that's what you do, you get a sense of depth, which you can't get if you have a 2D monitor.
Yeah, I agree with that. Based on my trying the NVIDIA 3D glasses on the PC, I got the same sensation that I could see the depth versus having to, like you said, learn it in the 2D environment.
Right.
Which is, we've found one of the hardest things for people to adapt to if they've never sim raced, is adapting to that 2D environment.
Yeah.
So what else? Anything else about Oculus Rift before we move on to something else? Because it sounds like that was one of the coolest things you saw at Gamescom.
Yeah, it was, and there were huge lines at that stand, and I don't think they anticipated that much excitement and all these people. They had a stand in the hall to get to the stand, and usually they have a line system where you have to go back and forth with the big popular titles, and but they didn't, because I guess they didn't really expect that. One of the downsides, or you mentioned the NVIDIA thing, of course, the advantage of the Oculus Rift is that you have head tracking. So you move around and you see everything, so you can actually judge the passing car. Is he close or is he not? And where is he actually in relation to myself? The downside, of course, is sim racers love their button boxes and keyboard stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Well, you're in a virtual environment. If you look down, you see the virtual instruments. You don't see what's actually in front of you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you'd have to do everything blindly, by touch, by feel.
Right.
Makes sense.
Or you could actually find some way to configure the virtual world into your actual world and kind of anticipate where everything is, but still, that would be kind of hard to do.
That's a great point, though. You bring up a great point with Oculus Rift. I can see that being an issue, especially for me. And what about now? How heavy was it on your head? I was curious about that. Is it substantial or is it pretty light?
Yeah, it was light. I don't think I noticed it, but you're in the first time in this virtual world, so you don't pay attention to weight and everything. I didn't really notice it. It was like, whoa, I'm in a car. Whoa, there's a corner. There's somebody passing me. Whoa, this is really cool. So I didn't really feel the weight of the unit.
That's good. That's good. All right, so let's move on then from Oculus Rift. That's really cool. I got to get my hands on one of those. The Farm Construction Simulator.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Now, I'm really interested in that. I don't know if you saw our piece on. Did you see our piece on Euro Truck Simulator?
Yeah, I did.
That was one of the funnest things I've done in my sim rig. So I'm actually very curious about the farm and the construction simulator. What was that like?
Well, they have a stand on Gamescom pretty much every year because of seeing them around, and you can actually do farming, harvest a field and go on these big tractors and make sure that everything comes in these big harvesters. You can drive those and those forklifts to get those bales on the thingy, on the trailer.
Right.
So
sounds like it was something to fit up into the region that we just moved into. We moved into a lot of farming and stuff up here, so
right.
maybe you have to check that out.
Right. And this year I noticed that they had something that where you could actually drive construction vehicles. So,
Now, was there any kind of, was it just through a gamepad and a keyboard or a
Yeah.
mouse and keyboard? Okay. Now, what about you? There was two other sims like that, handicap sim and the bus sim. What were those all about?
Yeah, the bus sim, it's similar to one of Sean's favorites, the underground sim. That you can actually drive for a bus, that transports, public transportation bus. And I think it was Berlin. And I was actually there when somebody tried it out, and they had to stop at the bus stop, and a woman comes in and just walks by, and I'm like, hey, she didn't pay. And then the guy explained that, oh yeah, that most of them have subscriptions, so they just walk in, but some of them do have to pay. So even that part of running the simulation has been taken into account. So
Interesting.
there are really some strange simulations there.
It's amazing the following that some of these simulations get. Like when we did the Euro Truck Simulator, we thought, we'll get a few views. That is actually one of our highest viewed shows to date, as our Euro Truck Sim review.
All right.
Now, what about the handicap sim?
Yeah,
what was that?
That was really the strangest thing. It was in one of the halls that was not reserved for those big, huge companies, but more for like government agencies and like clubs and stuff like that. And I was passing by and I saw somebody driving along. Like you could only see the legs and like one hand having a kind of like a joystick, like a motorized wheelchair. And I thought, okay, that is bizarre. And I stopped and I looked, and indeed, you could go with this motorized wheelchair through a little park area, going round and round.
That is kind of weird. That is definitely, I think that ranks up there. And no offense, obviously, to handicap people, but that's weird that they would simulate riding around in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked the guy that was running that, and he said, actually, he's with a government institution or government-funded thing. There was actually some good intention behind it.
Actually, you know what? I thought of something else that that would be a great use for that. Now that we were talking about it, would be for somebody that just became handicapped, using that simulator to see what it's like to be out there in their wheelchair for the first time.
Right.
And even though it is in a simulated environment, I mean, think about how many people, like I put my daughters through my racing sims before they drove real cars, just so they could get the hang of the wheel and pedals and just the motions and everything and the coordination that you have to use to operate a vehicle. So I can see, I mean, we didn't want to we weren't making light of it, making fun of it. It just seemed kind of odd when we first mentioned it, but I could see where there could be some great uses for it.
Right.
Moving on.
Okay.
Something really cool that I saw. I saw at E3, and then I see you saw some really cool retro gaming. And the retro gaming you saw was a lot cooler because, what did they have, like 10? It looked like PCs set up running Daytona USA.
Yes.
Virtual Daytona head-to-head.
Yes.
So what was that all about? That looked really cool.
Yes. That's actually one of the things that you run into Gamescom. That's why this is such a fantastic fair to go to. They have a retro area, gaming area, where they have like all old consoles on display and people playing on huge and old monitors on old consoles. And then sure enough, I was turning my head and there were all these guys sitting there racing on these old school wheels, and it was Daytona USA.
So that game actually has like a kind of a cult following, probably more in the US because it is a NASCAR-ish game, but it's really cool. I really love seeing those retro. At ours, it's called like the Gaming Museum.
Right.
And yeah, and they have, like you said, all the every old console you can imagine set up, and you can play every one of them. An old arcade machines and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so
the cool
that
thing
was
about
really
it,
cool.
the cool thing about it was the PCs were actually all connected. So they were not just running single player, but they were running a multiplayer race there.
Right. So it was like the way the arcades used to be. They used to have the arcade set up where they'd have multiple machines set up next to each other where you could race against each other. So,
Right.
so yeah, that was really neat to see that they did something like that. And you could probably, I don't know if you could race over the internet and do that, but it looks like there's definitely ways you could set up your own little Daytona USA arcade at home if you wanted to.
Right.
So that's going to wrap up this Gamescom piece. Again, we mentioned we're going to have the Gran Turismo 6, Forza 5, and a bunch of those specials. So thank you for that recap, Andreas. And we're going to be back for more, so make sure you check out the rest of those. For Andreas Nee, I'm Darren Ganji. Hopefully you enjoyed this little recap of some of the other stuff at Gamescom, and we'll see you on the other shows.